The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Welcome to 2023. It's another year for the Florida Beer Podcast. We're glad that you could share your time with us. Thank you so much, and welcome to the first episode of the new year, episode 126, if I am correct. This is Dave, your host and author. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, the first thing you should do is to like and subscribe to us on the podcasting app of your choice. That way you'll find out when the new episodes drop, and they will drop hopefully on a pretty regular basis this year, every Wednesday, unless I don't have anything to release. But hopefully that will not happen, because gosh darn it, I love bringing some awesome beer and other stuff related things to you, our dear listeners. And make sure to put that kind of great information into the review on the podcasting app of your choice. Please give us as many stars as you possibly can, hopefully 5. It's free for you and it's great for us, and it helps us continue to grow. Make sure to follow us on social media as well, at Florida Beer Blog on Instagram and Twitter, FL Beer Blog on Facebook, and of course the interwebs, FloridaBeerBlog.com, FloridaBeerPodcast.com. And as always, we are proud members of the Florida Podcast Network, and you can find them at FloridaPodcastNetwork.com. This is part 2 of our interview with Dave Lester, the head brewer at Unseen Creatures Brewing and Blending in Miami. You heard a lot about the beginning of the brewery and his introduction into the Miami-Dade brewing scene on our last episode. With this one, we're going to be talking about what's going on now a little bit more, and obviously going into the future a little bit more as to what they have planned and the things that they are doing. We're also going to be talking about Florida Strong, which was a collaboration beer that Dave Lester himself kind of pioneered. He created the recipe, and this is very similar to Resilience and Black is Beautiful and Curtains Up and other collaboration style beers that brewers are allowed to make, assuming they give their proceeds back to benefit the specific organizations and specific charities and specific situations that they are trying to help out. Obviously, with Florida Strong, they are raising funds for people that were affected by the Hurricane Ian landfall in Collier and Lee counties on the other coast of Florida, only about an hour and a half away from where we had this interview earlier last year. Thank you so much for listening. We do hope that you enjoy all of this stuff, and we will bring you part 2 of our interview with Dave Lester, head brewer at Unseen Creatures Brewing and Blending. Enjoy. Now, one of the things that you did do recently, which I thought was pretty cool, was the release of Florida Strong, which was a collaboration with a lot of brewers to help out everybody that was affected by Hurricane Ian not too terribly long ago. How did that project get started?
So, I've lived in Florida for a while, and I've seen a bunch of hurricanes. Miami didn't get hit by Hurricane Ian that hard. We got a little bit of rain, a little bit of wind, but it didn't really get anything.
No.
Our power went out at our house, though, just because we live in the Gables, and there's just like the power lines go through trees, and like someone can fart wrong and the power goes out during a normal storm. Like that just is a regular occurrence. But because at the time, I have a almost 3-year-old. The one that the child was named after, born in January 2020, and then I had another son in September. So my wife is breastfeeding, she's pumping, she has all these like electronic devices that she needs to, pump milk and to refrigerate the milk and to heat the milk and all this stuff. So when the power went out, she's like, "We got to get a hotel, dude." So we were staying at a hotel, and there were a lot of people staying there from like Fort Myers and the West Coast. So we're like the only locals at the hotel, though. But I was just watching the news and seeing footage, like, you know, where you're so preoccupied in your everyday life, where like, oh, we're out of power. This is so hard. Oh, I gotta like navigate a hotel with a toddler and baby and do all this shit, and then you see footage of roofs sticking out of water, like of flooded neighborhoods and anything, and it's very humbling, where you're like, yeah, man, like I have no idea what I would do in that situation with 2 kids, with a toddler and a baby. Like, it was like terrifying. It was like I got genuinely like affected by seeing that. And
it makes a lot of sense.
It made me feel helpless, like there was nothing I could do, you know?
That makes a lot of sense. Our businesses, you know, we love to go over there all the time. There are businesses that we love to go to that are gone now. They're just straight up gone.
It's devastated, you know, and we joke around like, oh, there's a hurricane coming, better stock up on beer. Like, nobody takes it seriously, like, unless it's like Category 4 or something, but I'm guilty of that. I've had so many hurricanes where I'm like more worried about having a hurricane party than actually worried about you know, myself or my family or so having little kids now and going through that and seeing that was a totally different experience. That I felt helpless, and I was just thinking of things I could do to help. And the next day I called Joe Pye from Broward Beer. I have known him for a while. He had written something about Hello There before, and he had done, I know he's done other collab beers like this, so I started talking to him just to see if he could help get, nice, keeping it old school.
We were just given a
Thanks, bro.
Old school can of Saison Dupont.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks, Matthias.
That's awesome.
Matthias has been on a Total Wine kick lately, where he's just going through like everything Total Wine has and bringing like. He's from Argentina too, so a lot of the obscure stuff, or a lot of the stuff that we have all the time here, is more obscure for him.
Oh, nice.
He's like, "Have you heard of this? Like, have you heard of this local small craft saison?" Like, "Oh, it's Saison Dupont." I want to do a clean saison, like a non-wild saison too.
That'd be kind of cool.
I just like to drink them.
Yeah,
they don't really sell well though, so.
Which is a shame because they're so easy.
They're so good, and this is like, we have good weather to brew them here without using glycol and stuff. Anyway, going back to the Florida Strong. I talked to Joe, and then I talked to here. We were talking about doing an event and just like giving the weekend proceeds or something, donating, and I'm like, what if we did a beer and we like did a beer to raise money, but then made it so other people could also brew that same beer, like something like the like Black is Beautiful was kind of an inspiration for that. What Marcus from Weathered Souls did, I thought was really awesome, having that kind of like a open source concept that can allow you like to raise more money for a cause than you could ever do just by yourself, where you make it a collaborative thing and then the community can raise a lot more. So we already have other breweries signed up brewing. We just did the first batch of Florida Strong. There's going to be more breweries with it coming out.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and it's funny because the cans that you have available for purchase still, just the sheer number of breweries that were on the back of that. And I think I was brought into that from the team over at Riptide Brewing in Naples. Yeah. They reached out to me while I was working out and told me about the whole process. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it down here for the brew day, but I thought that was kind of cool. And just, there was a lot of groundswell almost immediately from the craft beer community really trying to do something.
Well, Matt was one of the first people I had reached out to, Matt from Riptide, just because he pretty much was like one of the only people I actually knew at a brewery on the West Coast. I don't get out a lot. Like if I go out, it's like I go somewhere with my wife and stuff, but between 2 little boys and being a head brewer, I don't have a whole lot of free time.
A common refrain I hear from many brewers.
Yeah. There's like, hey, have you been to that? Oh, you're a brewer. I can't believe you haven't been to that brewery. It's like, yeah, because I'm at my brewery all the fucking time. Like, I am at the brewery, just one, the same one. So, yeah, I reached out to Matt because I knew he would know more people in the area, and at least I knew, like, Naples wasn't as affected. I saw pictures from their Instagram that they got flooded and everything, but I know, like, they were still open for business. So I thought at least I could talk to Matt and maybe have a place where we can bring shit that then we can give it to people from there. Like, if we're collecting supplies or something, there's, like, you know, a tangible face on that side. So he helped me get more email addresses to contact more people, and he contacted a bunch of people, and he's also with the Florida Brewers Guild and contacted people that way, so he helped get the word out big time. Joe from Brower Beer helped get the word out big time. Mario, our social media guy, was invaluable with the whole thing as well. He was one of the driving forces helping to make it happen. So basically I sent an email out, and we invited, we said we're going to brew the beer this day. Everybody's welcome to join. I wasn't expecting to actually get any brewers to come from the West Coast. So that kind of, between Matt and Joe emailing people and getting the word out, Joe had a media connect that got him in touch with somebody that it was just kind of, you know, serendipitous. Like, that it happened so well, and we actually managed to get, you know, the owner of Jordan from Point Ebel. We had Dan from Crazy Dingo. We had Zach from Ceremony in Bonita Springs. That all showed up. For the brew day. There were, you know, I think Dan said that this was the first beer he had since before the hurricane, where they're just doing so much work. So an unintended consequence of it was giving a cool day off to a bunch of these guys who have been dealing with, like, decimation, you know.
Yeah. And I know with Crazy Dingo, they lost quite a bit. Point Ebel lost quite a bit.
Yeah.
Other people kind of various levels of damage. I think for the most part, everybody's open-ish at this point, but
yeah,
I know there's still a lot
crazy.
to
I
go.
know Jordan has a house on Sanibel Island, and, you know, he couldn't even go to his house. Like, you're just not allowed to even if they have a boat, they weren't letting people go. I think he went by at some point, but it's still crazy that happens. Like, something so common as a hurricane in Florida that we take for granted is, like, you know, it actually is a dangerous, devastating thing that, you know, and I know it happens every now and then, but we get more hurricanes than we get serious ones.
Yeah, and you get complacent.
It's very easy to get complacent and not take it seriously.
So you've got, I guess, batch number 1 is in cans available, and you're going to be brewing this again, correct?
We're going to brew it again at other breweries. We'll probably brew it again here, but not right away. We need to make some other beers first.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, but I know there's a few versions going to come out from other breweries in Miami and the rest of South Florida. I've had a lot of people tell me they're going to brew it yet, but I don't have any concrete dates or anything from other people yet.
Which is interesting because you did this first, and then the Florida Brewers Guild came out with the concept for Florida Can Recover, which is a completely different beer.
It was like, yeah, I'm not saying they definitely happened independently of one another. I know it's like a common idea. They did this shit for the wildfires. There was the Sierra Nevada did the wildfire beer.
I know Curtain Up was done for the performing arts community in New York.
And then other half did the All Together beer. Yeah. There's the was it the Brave Noise one for that?
Don't remember.
Like with all the rat magnet stuff to raise awareness about treating people equally in the brewing industry.
I don't remember. I know. I remember exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, so I was really inspired by Black is Beautiful, that kind of stuff, to try and do something like that. And it was like the day after I sent an email out to like 50 other people that then the Florida Brewers Guild posted. They're like, oh, the Brewers Guild's doing one too. And I'm like, okay, that just means like we can raise more money. Like theirs is like whatever style you want. It's not really a clearly defined thing. It's just, do whatever style you want. It's called Florida Can Recover.
Interesting.
Is that? I don't know if that's supposed to be a pun.
I feel like it is. I feel like that's why they chose
Florida
that.
Can Recover. And I don't, I know, I'm sure the Brewers Guild does a lot of really good stuff. I know they spend a lot of effort with having people like on the ground in Tallahassee, harassing politicians to help, because we don't have the money to compete with Anheuser-Busch buying lobbyists. And I understand that, the Brewers Guild has people on the ground. So, like, what we can't do with money, they'll make up for having somebody in person annoying someone, which I hope works. That'd be cool if we could do self-distro in Florida.
That would be amazing.
That'd be awesome. But other than that, I'm not really even sure what they do. Yeah, I'm not part. I mean, I've gone to a couple of guild events and everybody's always been really cool, but I don't think a lot of brewers down here in like Miami and stuff really give a shit about the Brewers Guild.
Yeah, but at least Florida Strong is here, and at least
Florida Strong's here. But yeah, that's why we didn't like. Someone was asking if we were not going to do it because the guild's doing one, and I'm like, I don't see why.
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
In fact, I think I remember that email. I remember that email.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, there you go. I'm like, why? And it was like coincidental. They did it at the same time, but then they didn't announce. Like it was right after I sent that email, like the next day that they announced it.
Yeah.
So it was like pretty good. They were like, "Oh shit, somebody else is doing it too. We better hurry up." But I finally got a website out now too, floridastrong.beer.
Floridastrong.beer.
Floridastrong.beer. You could get the label, the recipe, just some basic background on it, just kind of saying what it is and what it's about. Basically, it's just a place to get the recipe and label if you want to make your own version.
Awesome.
So that's cool. Finally got that up. Would have been useful to have up a lot sooner, but, you get what you pay for when it's a bunch of brewers not, just trying to make shit work. And we didn't pay for it. So
well, there you go.
I got a friend to do it. I mean, I've paid for it. Dude, I did a lot of the Florida Strong stuff out of my own pocket, where it's not
nice.
just the brewery doing it. Where I wanted to make it happen, and both me and Joe too, were helped get the hotel for the guys coming from out of town, paying for web hosting for the website, all the kind of things that I thought would. It's a way to help. I feel like it's for a good cause.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely for a good cause.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to see that successfully get pulled off.
Yeah. No, I'm excited. I can't wait to see some more versions of it.
So I kind of want to switch gears, and one of the things that is definitely the most attractive, the most appealing, the most magnetic about Unseen Creatures is the image. Not just the image on the labels, which is obviously very clear, but it's a very dark, it's a very, I'm just going to go ahead and say this, Dungeons and Dragons / Magic the Gathering kind of evil, wooded sort of feel, but
it's better than Harry Potter, thank you. People see owls and they're like, oh, is this the Harry Potter place? We get that a bunch.
No, I can't.
Like, oh, thanks.
I mean, there's literally a giant chandelier made of antlers over your brew system.
It's a little metal.
It is, but you're also you're just off Bird Road.
Yeah.
I mean, Santa's Enchanted Forest used to be over there.
Right over there, yeah. We got the palmetto right out the window.
Oh, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit.
The palmetto.
Definitely. But
that's pretty metal too. People die there every day.
So here's the thing. Actually, okay, let's just go and talk about it now. The best thing about Unseen Creatures, the beer is great, the artwork is great, everything is great. The tap room is the best part because, and I'll take photos of it for Instagram for those of you that are listening, literally this one side of the entire tap room are picture windows for an off-ramp of the Palmetto Expressway.
Yeah.
And you literally, what would you say, 10 feet away from the cars that are zooming by?
Yeah.
And, if it wasn't for the glass, you would be getting touched by cars. I mean, this is just the most amazing
hand out
location.
beers in traffic.
That would
No, but you could toss people beers. If this window opened, you could throw beers to people sitting in their cars if you wanted to.
Oh, literally.
It's that close. It's right there.
It is that close. It's amazing. And you would think that for a Miami brewery with such a significant, I guess, focal point in the tap room, that would almost be an inspiration.
Yeah.
Do something like Flying Fish, because I know all their beers are named for exits on the New Jersey Turnpike.
Yeah.
Or Palmetto. It's amazing that's a big old cement mixer.
I've pitched a bunch of stuff incorporating the Palmetto or the ideas involving that, and it's just nothing's come to fruition yet.
Which is
Just
interesting.
sticking with the current, the gritty skulls and animals.
Yeah. I guess where did that come from? Because it's very not Florida.
No,
It's
maybe Marco had like a emo side to him. I don't know, man. He listens to a lot of like jazz and Kanye West, and then would come up with these like metal concepts.
But I was going to say, I mean, you basically have the ability to do things a little bit different now.
Yeah.
But it seems like the theme is going to keep continuing, and it's continuing. I mean,
the new owner, bought this place from Marco, and we definitely are making a conscious effort to try to not fuck up what worked.
Yeah.
Especially in terms of the branding. We are changing. If you look at our labels and you look at the label wall over there where they go, you see that it's gotten a lot less dark. There used to be a shit ton of, like, every label was black.
I did. There's actually a lot of light.
So we're using a lot more white, a lot more colors. We're increasing the color palette for a lot of the new, not making it so dark. It could still have like skulls and visceral detail, but it's not just as like all gloom, doom and gloom with it. So we're changing a little bit, but still trying to keep what people like about the art the same. Because we do get, that's probably the biggest compliment we get from people, more than the beer, more than anything else, is people like the label art, people like the brand and the vibe.
And who does the art?
This dude Probo, we found on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah, same artist we've used since day one.
Interesting. Is he local to Miami?
No, he's from Indonesia.
That's interesting.
Indonesian dude. He's really cool. Do a lot of like remote work with him where we hit him up, tell him our ideas, and then a couple days later he'll email back his concept, and then we'll kind of hone it in from there. But usually, like, we come up with ideas, and as much as like we think it should go one direction or another, we kind of hand it off to Probo, and sometimes he gives us stuff that's like drastically different than what we expected, but then works really well. So we go with it. We're like he's a really good artist, and we kind of also trust his eye, and like it's his art that is like the brand identity of this place.
And I was going to say, how much of it is the beer, then you give it to him for the art, or how much of it is the beer, then you create a name and you give the name to him? How much of it, has he ever...
We just give him like sometimes we'll just give him a concept that we don't even have a name or a beer for yet, or we'll come up with a beer and figure out a name and tell him the name and the beer and then figure something out, or we'll say like we want an animal, or we want, it depends on how specific our idea is, if we have like a vision for that actual concept. But then sometimes like the Keller beer I'm doing is called Cold-Blooded Keller. So all I said is I want to like put a snake on it. Let's do a cool snake. He also added like a skull with gold teeth and all the shit that like we never mentioned. He just was like drawing it, and he was like, I like this. And it's great. It's like I never said like, let's do a skull and it just kind of, that's his vibe, and he added it, and it looked really good.
That's funny.
So some of it is just like, you need to, the same way I need to give the schedule like a cushion for improvisation, you also need to do the same thing with artists and let them like, you can't overly dictate exactly how it should be, because then you kind of kill their creative vibe.
No, absolutely.
So kind of letting him run with a basic idea. Like, I feel like the less details we give him, the better stuff he turns out then.
Okay.
Like where we give him just kind of a vague concept, and then he goes wild and does really good stuff. But he's such a good artist, it's hard to give him an idea he doesn't hit out of the park.
Has he ever just given you artwork and said, here, try to do something with this? And kind of work backwards a little bit?
A couple times. We end up just like changing it.
Okay.
Or we'll just be like, yeah, that's not the direction we're working on. But usually he nails it. That's very rare.
And I noticed, especially in the early days, it was very owl heavy.
Yeah.
You know, obviously.
We still do lots of owl stuff.
But you've also moved on and done other animals or creatures and so on.
Yeah, because Unseen Creatures in general, just the name gives a lot of different things you can do. You know, with you could use any animals, you can make up animals, you could use whatever, you know, gloomy stuff, uplifting stuff. Yeah, I mean, we have beers that Marco named after his kids. You know, like Ollie and stuff like that, where he has a sour beer, like a mango sour that he named after his son.
That's cool.
So he does like a lot of the sour beers were a little more uplifting, and then some of the I wouldn't say like depressing names, but like
dark and ominous. Very much.
Ominous. Ominous is a better.
It calls to mind there was a brewery.
Not quite Burial, not like as bad as Burial.
Yeah, there was another one.
Like Entrails of My Enemies. Like
there was one. Gosh, there was one over in Largo years and years ago. I know all the people there were like master masons, and so there was a lot of heavy Masonic imagery in all of their labels. I cannot remember the name of that brewery for the life of me. It's going to come to me. But I am going to ask you this question as I try to figure out the name of that place. Because we are in the Bird Road Arts District.
Yeah.
And you're lucky enough to be so close to not only Lincoln's Beard, but also Seba is just around the corner with meads and kind of farm wines and whatnot. Are you starting to see this area? Is there starting to be growing traction for this tiny little section?
I mean, definitely
to start to grow in not just, beer and wines and beverages like that, but just in culture and so on.
Well, definitely a Lincoln's Beard.
Barley Mow Brewing. That's
what is it?
It was Barley Mow Brewing. They closed many years ago. I think there's a contract brewer that
I don't know.
Purchased the space there.
Yeah.
So they had a lot of
like
the Unkindness was their Cascadian.
The Unkindness, yes.
It was cool. Great. But no, obviously, I would assume that you do some stuff on a fairly regular basis with Lincoln's Beard since they're right there.
We just did a collab with them. We have a Polosmavi, a Czech-style amber lager that is on draft over there.
Nice.
So I love the Lincoln's guys. The owner, Falco, is a really cool dude. He's been like one of the pillars of Miami craft beer for as long as they've been open. He's hilarious. And their head brewer is Danny Steigerwald. He's a great dude. He's really like the biggest thing that I feel like their biggest improvement in Lincoln's Beard was when Steigerwald started working there.
Gotcha.
Like they went from a cool place to hang out with okay beer to a cool place to hang out with really good beer.
Gotcha.
And that was I feel like a lot of people would go there. It would always be packed when they first opened. But, it's like, the beer's all right. Like, it's still a cool place. I'll still go hang out just because it's a cool spot.
Yeah.
But then there was a huge shift when Steigerwald came on board that their beer really picked up a notch. And they do some of the best beer in Miami. I think Danny Steigerwald is a great brewer.
That's a tall order to state.
Yeah, I think so. And then Haidar's their assistant brewer who also does shojo.
Haidar does shojo, yeah. And actually, he spoke with us briefly at North Miami Brewfest.
North Miami. He came up and slapped my ass when I was talking to you.
I do remember that, which is funny because his wife was with him.
Yeah.
Miami-Dade craft
That's
beer.
all right.
What can I say?
I'm cool with him. I've known him for a while. I love Haidar. I've seen that man's ass too many times.
I was going to drink. I had to put the glass down. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So since you've been at a couple breweries, since you are obviously talking to a number of people, because I know that you just mentioned a collaboration with Davey at Orchestrated Minds.
Yeah.
Who is another person I cannot wait to get on the podcast.
The Wolfpack of One was a collaboration with Davey.
Which is interesting because Davey does a lot of beers that I don't think I've ever seen Unseen Creatures do, which are the big, heavy dessert stouts.
Yeah.
Very much like Three Sons.
Yeah.
And so how did this beer and how did two breweries that kind of have slightly different, I guess, artistic bents when it comes to beer collaborate on something like this?
It's kind of a long story. I've known Davey for a little while. I met him in Orlando. My brother-in-law owns a bar in Orlando, the Commission Beer Chamber.
Okay, that sounds familiar.
And they were doing a...
it also makes the Tactical Brewing shirt that you have on make a little bit more sense.
Yeah, exactly. This shirt, I only like ales and lagers.
I love it.
I got this tattoo too.
Yeah, I was noticing it.
I did a Unseen Creatures collab with Tactical, and me and Doug got bro tats, got collab tattoos.
Oh my god!
And this logo came from our collab tattoos.
That's awesome
on the shirt.
That's cool.
It's a badass skull. And this is also us talking about making fun of Untapped.
Yeah.
Like people going, I hate Pilsners. I only drink lagers. And you're like, what? Like, they don't know what they're talking. Just saying some shit like that where you're like, they don't talk about. So that's like, I only like ales and lagers. Like,
I don't like beer with
everything.
I only drink beer without hops.
I hate beer. I only like ales and lagers.
I may have to explain this a little bit in the notes for this episode. Okay, so back with Davey and his glorious beard.
We were at the Commission, and they had a bunch of... Corey from Three Sons was there, too. And Davey was with Corey, and I didn't know Davey, so I was drinking some Three Sons beer, and I go to Davey, and I'm like, oh, your beer's good, man. And he's like, what? And I'm like, you work at Three Sons, right? And he's like... Hell no, that ain't my beer. Like, I'm Orchestrated Minds, motherfucker. Like, super offended that I would think he worked at Three Sons, which I'm like, yo, Three Sons is dope. And he's like, hell no, that ain't mine. But I hung out with him there, and then I was working at Tripping Animals at the time. And me and Davey just got along really well, and I wanted to try to do a collab with him. And I ended up not doing a Tripping Animals collab with him. I have my own little side project called Hello There Brewing.
Okay.
That I was doing just as a creative outlet. So I was spending a lot of time brewing beers just brewing the same beers over and over. So I wanted to I had all these ideas for beers to brew that my boss didn't want to brew. So he would tell me to go, just go brew those somewhere else. Go brew them on your own. So that's where I started doing Hello There Beer to brew the beers I wanted to drink that I couldn't brew at work because they weren't the kind of styles that would, pay the bills.
That makes sense.
Doing lagers. And so with Davey, we did a smoked black lager, a smoked dark lager.
Oh, that sounds
the
amazing.
Dagobah Smoke.
Star Wars nerds.
Star Wars.
The port bow.
Yeah, Hello There Brewing is like a Star Wars themed. A lot of Star Wars, like hello there, General Kenobi. You're a bold one.
Gotcha.
Or it was just stupid, kind of a stupid thing at the start. But I've been able to do a bunch of fun collabs with it. So,
i.e., one of your signature beers being called the Child.
Huh?
I.e., one of your signature beers being called the Child.
The Child was way before that too.
Oh, really?
So the Child started right in the beginning of. It was brewed January 2020, the first time. The brewery opened December 2019. My son was born on January 4th. So we had the brew day that day. This was when I was working in the back for free. My wife went into labor, and I called Marco, and I'm like, hey man, I can't brew today. My son's being born, and he's like, oh, that's cool. So that beer they were brewing was the Child.
Oh, that's cool.
So because I couldn't come in that day, and that was right after Mandalorian season 1 ended. It was the week after the finale, And I'm a big Star Wars nerd, and like every week, me and Marco would talk about it. I'd always talk to him about Star Wars. He'll ask me like, random questions about background characters, and I read all the books as a teenager, like all the expanded universe stuff. Like, I just like Star Wars. I'm a fucking nerd. But so he named it The Child because it was my son's birthday, and I'm a Star Wars nerd. And I mean, I wasn't there for the brew, but that was just the inspiration of the day. He was like, I'm going to call it The Child because it was named after my son.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Which is cool. So that, was kind of a foray into Star Wars beer stuff. I mean, other than the fact that I worked at Wakefield for like 3.5 years. That's like...
Yeah, Star Wars.
He's the true Star Wars brewery.
Yeah.
But, for the Hello There, I ended up doing a collab with Davey. And that's, we were talking, I wanted to do something smoked. I'd been talking about smoked beers. That was the first smoked beer I ever did. So then when I started working here, I wanted to do Marco had scheduled a collab with Davey. And we were talking about doing like an English style, because we had just done an ESB not long before. Davey had a good ESB at his place. So we're like, let's do a mild. So we planned on doing a mild. And then I'm like, let's add some smoke to it. Like, we did a smoked beer before, let's do it. Like, Let's just fucking do it. Like, we're not going to ask for permission. We're just going to do it. And then what are they going to do? Be like, it's an Orchestrated Minds collab. So it should sell because of that, right? Like, that'll help, so we just went for it. I got a bag of smoked malt and threw that in.
That's nice.
And it kind of, it wasn't... But, I mean, Davey being involved in making an Orchestrated Minds collab helped us pull that beer off to be able to do it without, like, the owner saying no or not that we, like, ask for permission. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Exactly.
But we're forgiven. They like the beer. The beer turned out well. People have been happy with it. It just took a while to sell.
Gotcha.
It didn't sell well at first, but then kind of started doing better after... With some word of mouth, like after a month or two, it started picking up.
Yeah, cool. So I will leave you with this, and I am curious, since you have spoken to so many and connected with so many, the future of craft beer in Miami-Dade. And if you want to extend it to all of South Florida, absolutely.
Yeah.
How does that look in your opinion?
I have no idea. I feel like Miami is kind of behind the rest of the country in a lot of ways with craft beer. We have a population similar to a city like San Diego, but a fraction of the breweries. We have like 10 breweries compared to their 100. I feel like we still have a long ways to go to like educating the city and having like an actual, big craft beer community here. We have for such a big city, it's a very, very, very small craft beer scene and a very tight-knit craft beer community. Like, we know people at every brewery here.
Yeah.
There's no breweries that we're like, who? So that's a blessing and a curse. I think that's really cool. We all help each other out, but then it could be like high school. But I do like that. I feel like here more than anywhere, a high tide raises all ships. That like we don't need to be competitive with other breweries.
Yeah.
Everybody can eat. There's more than enough people in Miami that every brewery can be successful. We should be able to support another 100 breweries here.
Exactly.
And still have it be, where people can make money. It just comes down to, creating the culture and educating, casuals, the people who aren't beer nerds. And then we have places like, Vesa Sur, that's owned by Anheuser-Busch, and La Tropical, that's owned by Heineken Lagunitas, that like a lot of small business people want to look down on and like, oh yeah, fuck those guys, they're corporate or whatever. But the way I see it, they're the ones spending the money to get the casuals into breweries. They're getting the non-brewery people to go to a brewery and have a good time. So as more people go to Vesa Sur and they educate them, these people, if they get it, they'll get into craft beer and then be like, oh, there's other places I can go have craft beer. Let me check out some other breweries. At least that's my hope with it, where they're spending all the marketing money on regular people to get them to go to become brewery people. So I think right now we just have our work cut out for us in Miami's the number one Corona market in the world.
Really?
Number one Corona market in the world.
I had
we
no
sell
idea.
more Corona here than anywhere else.
Huh.
It's a big cocktail city. It's a big liquor city.
Yes.
Craft beer is kind of an afterthought. And there are some really good breweries here, but for such a big city we should have a lot more. And I feel like over the next decade or so you're going to see more breweries and you're going to see more I feel like this is a place where if you could carve out your niche and you could be successful here with stuff that might not work anywhere else. And then stuff that works everywhere else might fail here. So Miami's its own like city state, it's its own little thing. It's not like Florida, it's not like the US, it's Miami. But it's also like the most Florida and the most American in certain ways, in many ways, like in the terms of it being such a melting pot and I don't know if you want to get into like politics or any any of that fun stuff. Income inequality is a big. You're kind of like in some ways, it's ahead of the rest of the country because it's kind of where we're going. Looking at the housing market and all this stuff in Miami, where it's like, we're leading the way in that, but then still have to catch up with craft beer.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can start destroying the former and propping up the latter a little bit more.
Yeah, hope so.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
So there you go. As far as I know, Florida Strong is going to continue to be produced at Unseen Creatures and other breweries around the state for the foreseeable future. Definitely recommend that you run out and grab yours right now. I still have a can that I'm looking forward to releasing the information with on the floridabeerblog.com pages. So hopefully you will follow us there as well to take a deeper dive into the beer itself. In the meantime, make sure to follow us on social media and like and subscribe on our podcasting app that we have uploaded our stuff to, that hopefully you're listening to right now. We will be back, and when we are back, you will be the first ones to know because you'll get that alert when we drop our new episodes. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on social media. Reach out to us if you need to at floridabeerblog@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Field producer is Steve Pekala. Executive producer for the Florida Podcast Network and Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Legagneur. This is Dave, your host and author. We will be back soon with another great episode of the Florida Beer Podcast. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening and drink Florida Craft.